Alright guys, welcome back to part 2. We're actually going to start working on this thing, on wiring it. So here I am under the dash, and first things first, I got to get the old fuse block out so I can get the new one in. So let's show you how that all goes. I don't know if you can see it up there. It's way up there. Right there, that little guy. There's two 5/16 screws on the bottom of it that we have to take off, and I brought some wire cutters so we can snip some of this old stuff out of the way. All right, so while I'm doing this, I'm going to talk a little bit. A while ago I was talking with the engineer at Painless and kind of asking him for some tips and tricks and stuff, and he has a really interesting way of doing wiring. He's been probably rewired about 1,000 cars over the years, and how he likes to do it is he will actually, well, he has a pegboard, so that helps a little bit, but you don't have, that's not required. But what he will do is will actually lay out the new wiring harness, and he'll get like a piece of string or something like that, and he'll go from where the fuse block mounts over to the ignition switch or the radio or things like that. And so he will actually terminate things ahead of time before he puts that wiring harness or the fuse block in and everything. And to me, that it makes a lot of sense, right? I mean, he can wrap all his wires and get everything nice and clean, and then when he does, all he has to put it in there, all he does is connect everything. But if you're like me, like most people, you're not going to take the time to do that. I feel like that might need a little bit of experience to do that. I don't know, I just haven't done it, but it does make a lot of sense. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put this fuse block up there and kind of get things routed and laid out where they need to go, and then we'll just start terminating things. So I don't think you really need to reuse these screws, but we'll save them anyways. So fuse block is loose. I'm just gonna cut these wires because I'm not reusing any of this. I believe the manual does recommend to save all this stuff, I think, just for like more of a reference point than anything. Like if you need to know how stuff was ran or whatever the case may be, I guess. I don't know. Like I said, luckily this car is pretty much unmolested. The only thing that I'm not sure was this green wire, because it was kind of like separate from the other wires. And looking at it further, so here's, I mean, look at this thing. Look how small this thing is. So we have accessory here at the top, we have heater, radio, backup lamps, and brake lamps. So, and whatever this one is off to the side here. So I think what it is this green one, because this car actually has factory backup lamps. So my guess is not every car, not every 57 at least, had backup lamps. Actually in 55 and was an option. I'm pretty sure 56 would be the same story, so it's just an option. So they probably just added this. If you ordered backup lamps, you got this extra harness and this green wire that would go to the taillights. But it's interesting. So I'm gonna still save this because never know, I might need something off of it or another. And since I read the manual, there's a couple interesting tidbits with 57 that we'll go into, but like one of them while we're staring at it is your high beaming switch. I don't even know if that works. On 55 and 56, the wires go outside the firewall and down the engine compartment side to the switch, where in 57 all the wires are inside the car. It's a little bit better idea that I would say than going on the outside, so this keeps it a little cleaner. So like when we lay out the wiring harness, it actually recommends that you pull those wires out from the harness that goes underneath the hood and leave them under the dash. So I'm going to lay this wiring harness out there on the ground just so you guys get a little bit better idea what it looks like. Okay, before I went too far, I just want to show you. So there's a few tie wraps, like the bread, like on your bread, that held this all together. So I took those off, and you can already see there's 3 distinct loops of wire, and this is really going to be your, front headlights, engine compartment, all that, which is, I'm assuming this guy, since it has this nice little grommet on it. Yeah, so there's some nice charge wire and all that. This is going to be under, this is going to kind of be in the car and everything, and this is under the dash. So I'm sorry, this is going to be like your tail lamps and all that. I saw dome light in here, so I thought it was in the car, which I guess that is, but the rest isn't. So you can kind of see already, it's like, oh, okay, well, everything's kind of broken out. So let me undo these other tie wraps and lay this out even further. Or I wonder if it might be better just to mount this guy up first and do this while it's in the car. Kind of keep it together. I guess it really doesn't matter too much because these are still all going to be all kind of together. So let me get them unwound a little bit, and then yeah, I'll show you mounting that up. Okay, so I undid all these little ties. I'm going to keep these because I like these, especially like as a temporary holder instead of having to use a zip tie and then cut it off if I'm just trying to do something. So one question you might have is, how does Painless know how long to make these wires for these different cars? So if you have, like this car, a 57 two-door, compared to, say, if it was a wagon, the wagon, the wires need to be a little bit longer. Pretty simple. They're extra long. So like, check this out. These are the wires that go to the taillight section, and it just goes and goes and goes, still going, and there we go. So there's the end of it. So I mean, you can see these wires are probably, I don't know, 15-20 feet long, and they do this for 2 reasons. One is they don't know if you have a wagon or a coupe or 4-door or whatever, so no matter what the wires are long. 2, I can route the wires how I like. So for example, let's go up here under the hood. This is a good example. These are the engine compartment wires, right? These are your headlights, all that. From the factory, they go along the inner fender. But maybe you're like, hey, I would really like them, I don't want them to be seen. So where it comes out under here, you can see that. So I can't see it right now, but you want it to come along this inner fender and, through here or something like that. Sorry, you guys couldn't see that. Through like this inner panel to where you can really hide all the wires. Maybe you want them to go down and over instead of just going, underneath the core support, something like that. The wires are plenty long to do that. So that's another really good thing about the Painless one, is the wires are way extra long. So like, even for example here, there's wiring that comes out here, and this is for your heater, Obviously, like, I don't even know how this thing runs. Like, look at these wires. Like, they're just like crusty. There's no coating on them. Covering's all gone. They're all burnt to a crisp. But somehow this thing actually runs. But, you know, maybe you don't want them to come out here. Maybe you'd like them to come out there and like go along the bottom of the firewall and come up. Wires are plenty long. I'm probably still gonna have them come out there because I kind of want like a stockish look here. But yeah, same thing with like, so here's your water temperature wire. Maybe you want to, I don't know, run underneath the bottom and come up from the bottom to here or something. Wires are plenty long to do all that stuff. So anyways, that's how they do it to it makes sense for them, like one part number for all of them. But I think of it as a good thing because I can run the wires where I want, how I want, and two, there's always extra wire. So I mean, my T-bucket, that's a very small car, the wires are that long. I had almost enough wiring left over to wire a second car. So I keep all this wiring because I use this like really nice wire, and it's nice too because it's all labeled. Like every single wire is labeled every 12 inches, which is pretty awesome. So like this here is already pre-terminated. So some of the stuff under the dash is pre-terminated already. I don't know which this goes to. I'm assuming this goes to a headlight switch. So this is already just plug and play on your headlight switch. Like, that's easy. This is going to be your ignition switch. So it gives you power, ignition power to fuse block, to your coil, all that. Here's one thing too that I didn't touch on earlier that's pretty awesome. So these are all the wires for the gauges. Maybe I did talk about this, but I'm going to talk about it again because I think it's pretty neat. So they include two sub harnesses, okay? So if you're running the factory gauges like I am, you'll use this guy. So you can, oh wait, it's over here. Use this guy. So you can just wire your gauges up with this, plug everything in on your workbench or whatever, and then you just plug this in when it's in the car. Super simple. But let's say you're using Dakota Digital or something like that. Here you have this. So before, you'd have to like cut all these ends off and strip the wires and all that and put it in the little computer box. But with the Dakota Digital, you can just use this guy, and these are extra long too. These are like 3 feet long to if you want to mount that little box somewhere off to the side. And you saw me grab this. This is pretty cool too. So like on my 55 that uses another company, they didn't have this. So super common for guys to add, you know, your gauges underneath the dash, like a water temperature, oil pressure, volts. So they actually include a stub out here for that. So there's going to be another little sub harness in here. Yeah, where'd it go? Somewhere in here. I thought this was it. Maybe not. Either way. But that's a little harness to where if you have those gauges underneath the bottom of your dash, like those super common gauges, you can use this guy to add those and wire them up. So when you're wiring up all this stuff, it already gives power, whatever you need, to this guy to wire those up. I think that's pretty slick because like that car right now obviously just has idiot lights, and you know, that's about it, right? We got a temperature gauge, which who knows if that even works, gas gauge, and that's it, and a speedometer, and just some idiot lights. So with that, I can easily pick up some like 3 little gauges down there and mount them, and I can know what my water temperature actually is reading instead of just C or H, oil pressure, etc. So, all right, rambling on a bit, but I just want to give you guys a little bit more background on the wiring harness and everything. So right now, I'm going to grab this bracket, wherever it went, this guy here. So here's the bracket that mounts up to, and one of these has this guy here, I believe those long screws. are what we use to mount this guy up. Because I want to say there's some screws also for just that to mount that up, but I'll probably just reuse the ones I got. Either way, so let me get that mounted up. I'm going to reference my installation manual again. Like I said, this thing is gold here. Just follow this, and it's like you remember when you're in school and you like doing math and you don't like if you can just follow the formula, or like let's break that down even further. Let's say you're baking a cake. Like, you don't need to know how to bake a cake if all you need to know is how to follow a recipe, right? You read this, you add this much flour, this much sugar, bam, you know, you got a cake. That's how this is. It's like a big recipe book for wiring up this car. Just follow it to a T, and at the end, you're good to go. So let me mount this thing up and kind of show you all that too. Okay, getting ready to mount the fuse block. So I got the mount in there. Now in the instructions it says you only use one of the factory holes, which in this view is the bottom right one, and then you use their self-tapper on the top left. I was actually able to get both holes installed on the bottom, the factory one, but I went ahead and put that top left one in, and that's actually my own self-tapper because I seem to have lost theirs. But now the fun part of mounting the actual fuse block up there. But it just uses 2 screws. You can see there's already the self-captured. All right, so it looks like a bit of a mess, and you're correct, but progress has been made. Let's show you. So fuse block is now mounted up there, which really wasn't too bad, and I'm starting to just kind of move some of these wires around to where they go. So for example, that's going to be on my rear taillight wiring, and if we go up here, I got the forward lamps and all that coming through. So I think kind of the next step is I need to get some of the dash apart and get these wires here out so I can get those, all the engine under hood wires through. But as you can see, I'm running out of daylight and it's getting cold, so that's going to be it for today. But I'll be right back, and we'll keep going. I think too, what I'm going to do is go ahead and pull the bezel out and all that, just so I can reach behind the dash and get in there easily. And I might as well go ahead and, like, you know, remove the lights, headlight switch and all that stuff while after I get that bezel out, to where just I gotta get in there anyways. So that'll also allow me to route some of these wires and kind of get them laid where they need to go. So right now it's just a matter of kind of laying all the wires where they go. We're not terminating anything at this point, but I'm sure you knew that because you read the instruction manual just like I did. So so here's where it shows 57 specific for this fuse block, how to mount it. So you can see here, they reused one of the factory ones, and I was able to get this one in. And then I went ahead and used that one too. So I have 3 in there. I thought maybe this would be like cockeyed to where that's why they couldn't use it, but because I thought this part of the bracket might hit that pad, but it didn't. It was fine. So, and then like I said, if you have a 55, it shows you. And if you have a 56, it shows you. Now in theory you could really mount this wherever you want, I guess, but this is kind of semi factory-ish spot, and it's up out of the way and everything. So I'm just looking here, but yeah, I think I'm going to flip through this again tonight just to kind of refresh my memory on everything. And like I said, hopefully tomorrow I'll find some time to keep going with this. We'll see you then. Oh, hey, I didn't see you there. Of course I knew you were there because I set the camera there. Anyways, I just got most of the old dash wiring harness out. I've been working on it for a couple hours this morning, actually. Well, hour or so. in between everything else, but it kind of went down a little bit of a rabbit hole. Let me show you here. So I took the cluster out. Now on a 55 or 6, they're super easy to take out. There's like 2 screws here and 2 right here, and that's about it, and the whole cluster will pop out. This had the 2 screws here, it had 1 there, 1 there, then these are studs that go through with a nut on the back, and you got to somehow get the speedometer cable off, and I didn't feel like crawling up there and all that, so I ended up taking off the steering wheel. I don't know if you have to, but I did, because I'm like, you know what, I'm going to be in here working and everything else, let's just make life easier. So I took that off, and I ended up unscrewing. There's 3 screws. There's 1 right there, 1 down there, and then another 1 down there, and that mounts kind of the turn signal switch. And there's 1 more big screw right here for this like shifter guy, but I ended up doing that. Oh, and there's 2 bolts down here, 1 on each side, to kind of lower this down a little bit. Once I did all that, moved all this forward a little, as much as I could and everything, finally got the cluster out. But there's the back side of the cluster here, and this is a big old heavy son of a gun, but that's kind of where so let's see, there's turn signal, oil, generator, turn signal, and then these are just the lights to light up the gauges. So there's not a lot to it, but here's kind of everything here. So I'm gonna reuse this headlight switch, and so I gotta take that off, but I'm gonna keep this for now just in case, you never know. So I took the headlight switch out. The wiper switch is just with a little cable guy here and vacuum, so I don't need to worry about that. What else we got here? I disconnected everything from the ignition switch, but I'll probably take this out to wire it up also. That's pretty simple. Here's the lighter. I would assume that'd work. That's got a little stud on the back. Heater controls, all that. So there's some wires in here for the heater down here and everything. I think that one comes from the engine compartment. Oh yeah, look at it. There's stereo wires for that non-existent speaker. Where that goes to. So got pretty much most of this wiring out, at least under the dash. The reason I was doing it was for this guy here, which is hooked on this little metal clip right there. I don't know what even these wires go to. It's amazing this thing didn't burn down, or that it even ran, because these wires are like super crusty. And like even the gauge wires, like a bunch of them were here, like pinched kind of behind this cable for the wipers, like just pinched in there. I'm like, how do they not chafe and burn down? Interesting though. But so if you're rewiring your 57, you're following along, thanks for watching, I appreciate that. But I don't know if you need to necessarily remove your steering wheel. And I mean, in theory, you really wouldn't even have to remove your cluster. You could just unplug everything and plug everything back in if you can reach under there. I'm doing it just to be able to show you guys a little bit better. Plus, I don't know, to me it just seemed like the easier thing. Like a funny anecdote or little story. Like when I was a mechanic, I was real young. I think I was like 19. You know, sometimes, you know, I'd grumble a little bit about having to do a job, and my old boss was this old cowboy, and he would go, oh, it's just only 6 more bolts. And no matter what the job was, it didn't matter if it was 1 bolt or 1,000 bolts. You just, oh, 6 more bolts. And like what he always meant by that is, you know, it's only a couple more bolts. Just take it out and stop fighting it, you know. And I always think about that when I work on cars. Totally unrelated to this video, but that's just a random memory. But I always think about that though. Just take the extra 5 minutes, whatever. Make your life way easier. So that's what I did. So now I'm gonna go here under the hood. Let's see. And I should be able to pull these guys out. Boy, that grommet is rock hard. Luckily there's a new one. I'll have to bust that and pull those out, but those will come out. So I'm going to disconnect this. I actually have a new ballast resistor. I have a new one of those. I have a new coil. I have a new cap and rotor, plugs, wires, everything. So I think I was telling you guys yesterday, I'm just going to do a tune-up while I'm at it. So that's kind of where we're at right now, is just trying to get this out. So I'm going to finish disconnecting all this stuff and all this here. So there's like my generator, which does not work, so I got to figure out what I'm going to do there. And yeah, here's like your voltage regulator, horn relay. Here's where the lights go through. So I'm just going to disconnect all this stuff, kind of get some of this old wiring out of the way. Looks like to get these well, this thing's upside down and crooked. It's kind of funny. So it looks like 1, 2, 3, not even one up there. It's supposed to be, but not. Get this all off, get these headlights out. I read in the instructions too that in order to wire up these turn signals, you have to remove this whole deal. But it's just some nuts on the back. I've had this off and on a couple times because this grill wasn't installed properly when I got the car, and it was missing that emblem. So I actually found a used one and put it in there so it actually kind of matched the car. So, all right, that's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna disassemble all the rest of this wiring, and then we can start laying in this new, beautiful, flexible, painless wiring. Remember when I said their wires are extra long? I mean, look at this. Crazy, right? But again, better to have them too long than too short. And this way too, however you want to route them or hide them or whatever engine you're using, plenty of wire. So took off the whatever turn signal bar deal, took that off. Both headlights are out. All that wiring is now removed. This is all the headlight wiring. And even I ran this guy. This is battery number 916 battery power source engine section. So this, if I remember right, this is what basically powers up the entire fuse block and everything. That's what uses that little MIDI fuse that I showed you guys in the last video. The other thing is like, look at that. So much better than before, right? So I didn't record this, but it's pretty easy. So all I did was kind of like start pulling wires and setting them where they need to go. So like this group of wires here are all my headlight switch, and since that goes right there, left them there. This is my ignition switch that goes right there. These are the heater blower wires. That little guy is right there. I don't know if you can see it, but that's where those go. Down here, here's my turn signal switch wiring. Here's backup light wiring. The purple wire is going to be my starter wiring, but it has to go through my neutral safety switch first. So once it goes through there, then it'll route back out that hole back there where all the engine wiring goes through the firewall. What else we got in here? Here's like the plug for your gauges. Stereo wiring. I don't even have a stereo. It was gone before I bought this car, so I got to figure something out there. But that, here's dome light, courtesy light wiring for all over there. This is kind of like all the accessory power stuff, so I just have it coming out the glove box right now. But so what do we have here? So it's saying glove compartment light power, cigarette lighter power. So those ones I'll have to pull out because I'll use those. I think like this like big orange guy is like for power windows and locks, all sorts of stuff, all the accessory stuff, accessory ground, ignition. So like this pink's ignition power, 906. Wiper switch, there's a good one. So if you're using electronic wipers, which is most people probably would, to take this apart and see if I can fix it. That would be power for that. So said all sorts of good stuff there. So I you know, took 20 minutes or whatever it was and kind of just moved everything around where it wanted to be, so that way I can get in and out a little easier. That's all I'm going to do in there for right now. Next step is to route these a little bit better, get them in the sheathing, and start wiring them up. Okay, storm must be blowing in. Got really dark on me quick. So here we go on wiring. So first step, and again, each year is specific. So I'm working on the 57. This is where the grommets all go. And you can't see anything. Let me turn my light here. There we go. So I installed that guy right there. And then see that one down there. Now in the manual it shows one going right here, like right here through the core support, but I think somebody's trimmed mine, so I don't have that. So my wires do go up underneath core support for that. So I started looking at the wires, and so how Painless has them zip tied is kind of two separate. So these guys are shorter and they're by themselves. So this is left side headlight and turn signal. But again, this is where it's really important that you read through the instruction manual. I know that the turn signals are in this grill bar, which has its own separate harness here. Let me find it real quick. Here, this guy. So it has its own separate harness. So if you're working on a 1955 or 1956, you know how the wires will go through. You know, they go through here to where they're underneath the fender. And this one, the 57, normally has like a piece here for the fresh air, but this car, they took it out for whatever reason. But so the wires would come through and then they go into the back of the buckets like this, kind of like this one with the grommet, and then go into the headlights. There's not a separate connector like this. But on the 57, and so on the 56, 55 and 56, you would want these four wires, because this is going to do your left headlight high and low and your turn signal and park lights, because obviously your headlight would be here and your turn signal would be down here. But on the 57, it's over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to unzip tie the turn signal wiring. So basically, hold on, let me show you before I get there. So these are the wires that would go through this little grommet here, and then all these wires would go through this big guy here and come out through the core support. But because I have my turn signals right here, I'm going to pull these two wires, these smaller ones, and everything's labeled every 12 inches. For my turn signals, I'm going to put them with these guys, so they'll all come through here. So then how this guy works is, I can show you real quick. So this guy, it already has a weather pack connector and everything, so it's like these are already pre-terminated to these ends, so that's awesome. And it's designed so that this guy, the shorter side, is on the driver's side, and this longer one here goes all the way over to the passenger side. So this guy here, so this Painless basically has you take that bar off and then install these guys and then install the bar back on, because that'll get the wiring on the right side. And then they include the male end of the weather pack connector to wire up, and you know, it shows a diagram, but I'm just going to kind of follow these wires here. But I think before I put this guy on, I'm going to actually pull apart that housing and clean it up. The other thing too is I went on eBay and I found a guy that sells a complete bulb kit for the entire car, whether it's 2-door, 4-door. It doesn't come with headlights, but every other bulb in the entire car it came with. It was like $40 or something, and so I bought that. I'm waiting for it to show up here in another day or two, because I figured while I'm in here I need to put in new bulbs, and this just saved me a trip to the hardware store or auto parts store and trying to figure out all the different bulbs. It's like already comes already labeled. It's awesome. So while I'm doing this, I'm going to be cleaning up and putting in new bulbs and everything to everything will work good. So for right now, I'm going to clip these guys. So this one, so these are the left driver's side headlights turn signals. So here's the left ones here. So then now these will go by themselves. These guys will all go through this grommet down here. Let's see if I can show you. Alright, let's see if I can get these all these wires through that little hole. There's zip ties on here, so this might be a little interesting. It's like giving birth to wires, huh? Well, I'm gonna just pop these zip ties off. Even though they're small, they're gonna hang up. But I do appreciate that they're on there to help keep these things all organized and together. Okay, let's try this again. There's some. There's another one. Let's see here. What do we got going on? Let me show you. These wires do love to get tangled quickly. Speaking of the wires, so this is an interesting thing I learned a while ago. A lot of people say that the painless wires are too thin, that the factory ones are thicker. So me being a curious person I am, I asked Painless about this. I said, hey, people say that your wires are thinner than the factory one. Like, what's the deal with that? And the engineer explained it, and he basically said that the wires themselves, like as far as like the actual metal part is all the same. So, you know, a 20 gauge wire or whatever is a 20 gauge wire. So their wires are no thinner than the factory. In fact, a lot of places they are thicker. So I said, well, why does it seem like they're much thinner then? And he explained that it's all in the, oh, where the heck? Like a missing purple wire. Here, where is it? There it is. So it's actually in the sheeting itself. So they use a sheeting that's thinner, but they said it's really hard to like puncture like with the sharp edge like anything, where some of the stuff that's bigger it's bigger, but it's really easy to puncture. And I kind of knew what they were talking about because I've, you know, ordered some cheap crap off of Amazon, some wiring stuff, and noticed that, like, yeah, the wiring looks really big, but then it's actually pretty small, because it's, you know, the metal part itself is really small, but it looks like a big wire, but it's just the sheathing. So they're painless wires are not actually smaller. If anything, they're bigger than factory or anybody else's. They just use the smaller sheathing. They say they like that because, again, it's harder to puncture, and it does provide for a smaller harness when you're trying to snake these things around and everything. So I can appreciate that, especially like right now when I'm trying to shove a bunch of wires through a hole. It makes a smaller harness for that. So if you've been wondering, now you know. Okay. Now I got these two guys. I got my left headlight. And if you're also wondering, yes, my beard does get in the way sometimes. Sometimes it's harder to see things, and sometimes it's just gets pinched and pulled. Okay, so let me show you guys. So there we go. So I haven't put any of the wrap stuff on there yet. Obviously, I'm kind of waiting to get everything pretty well laid out and sorted, but there's all the wires going through the core support and going through there. I need to look and see what it takes to wire up that voltage regulator and my generator, because I want, if there's more wires that need to come from the, maybe even those wires over there, I'd like to run them in line with these guys before I wrap it all, but I'll get to that point. So, well, shoot, busy talking. So I think what I'm going to do is these two guys, these are my right headlight. I'm going to pull back out, and then I'm going to wire those up underneath the core support and over and out for that. So I'll pull those back out. So here's my 4 wires for my turn signals, park lights. Got those. There's 2 more wires. This black one is, it's your horn wire, and this gray one, it's a relay activation. So basically it's going to get 12 volts when you turn the key on. So if you're running like an electric fan or something like that that's just keyed on, not powered or triggered by a computer, you would use that. So that's basically what that is. I don't plan on having an electric fan up here, but maybe. But either way, what I'm going to do is just take this and kind of tuck it away somewhere clean, because you know, might use that at a later date. Actually, on my dad's 55, we ended up taking this, and I found it on the other side, on the fuse block side, and snipped it, and we use this because he has a ground activated relays for his cooling fans. So since it was already ran nicely in all this harness, we went ahead and just reused that and use that for a ground activated relay. So all right, well, I'm gonna get these pulled back out and kind of strung over there and out. Let's see here. Oh yeah, here's headlight wires, nice and plenty long. So I'll probably, I don't know, strap them up there somehow or another. But do that. They do need a ground wire, which if I remember right, Painless includes a ground just for the headlight, but it's like separate. If not, I will add one. Usually they, oh yeah, it's right here. It actually even says on here, headlight ground. While we're at it, let's talk grounds really quick. So I'm gonna talk grounds, and then I'm probably gonna go inside because I don't know, might be a Garth Brooks When the Thunder Rolls song coming up soon. So really quick on grounds, super important. So again, like, I picked this engineer's brain, like, poor guy, but I was asking him, like, well, what's your number one tech call? You know, like, what issues do people have with Painless? And he said it's almost always user error, which I would agree with because I screw up things. But two, you guys, it's almost always ground issues, and I've experienced that a few times throughout working on cars where electronics do really funky things, and it's always just a bad ground because it's like the ground is going back through the hod, and I don't know, it's just weird stuff it does. So I'm kind of a freak about grounds, and I'll add extra grounds to everything. And the reason I bring this up too is I was looking at this earlier. Now these cars, it's pretty basic, but like when you're adding fuel injection and things like that, you know, grounds become even more important. But this guy only has one ground. Let me get my light out here again. So there's one ground right there on a water pump bolt. That's all. That's all that goes from the battery over to the entire car, really, is just that one single bolt. And sorry, I'm just looking at the fuel pump. I bought a new fuel pump. That one leaks. I bought a new one. So usually what I will do is I always have a ground going to the engine block, at least one, if not two, and from the battery. And then I also will go from the engine block to the frame. And then I usually go from the battery to the frame, and I'll also go from like the frame to the body in a different one or two spots. So at the end of the day, you can never have too many grounds, but you can definitely have too little of grounds. So that's always something I keep in mind. So like if I put the battery in the trunk, which I did with my Cadillac and my Chevelle, I actually have one going off straight to the so from the battery straight to the body, and then the other one going to the frame. And then on the engine side, I have it going from the frame, usually in two spots, one on each side, from the frame up to the motor. And then sometimes I'll even do one up here from the frame up to the you know, core support or the body or something too. Just again, kind of never have too many grounds. Sometimes they give you like I know they have like these really nice braided grounds. I should have bought some, and I still might. Sometimes they have like this little ground strap kit that are pretty nice. Oh yeah, look at that. There's the power for the clock. Its own little harness. Anyways, so I'm going to reroute all that stuff, and yeah, that's probably all I'm going to do today, because I want to get these, I'm going to pull this apart and get this all cleaned up, because you can see there's already a bulb in there, but like I need to get my Dremel in here and clean this up, since this is the ground part and everything, and pull the lenses off anyways, because I'll put a new bulb in it. So all right, be back tomorrow. All right, let's try this again. I shot this, and apparently somewhere along the way my battery died and I didn't even notice it. This one's already looking low too. Okay, let's see if we can get through this. So this is the headlight ground wire. I had already cut this in half. I'm just gonna do half on each side. So this is gonna be kind of how you crimp everything throughout the entire car. There is really good instructions in the Painless catalog, or thing with pictures, so you can always reference that if you forget. But let's show you. So this is why I picked up these guys, is there's actually a gauge here, and actually, so you want to strip off 1/4 of an inch of insulation, and these are great because it does it right on the money. Don't have to guess. So I'm going to do both sides, 1/4 of an inch. And then I'm going to take, and this is just like a regular terminal, nothing too special about that, but this is going to be for screwing this into the housing to give the headlight ground. These are just regular like splice connectors. I'm going to use these fancy ones, but you don't have to. You can use just regular ones as well. Almost doesn't feel like it's tight enough. Let's do that again. Oh, pulled it right out. Well, darn it. Did they give me an extra one? I'm sure they did. Let's find it. This is real here, folks, right? I already screwed it up. Where is... oh, yeah. Well, I always like to give all these things a little tug, and sometimes that happens, but that way I know for a fact that they are nice and tight and won't come loose. Remember before I was saying how important grounds are. So put this back in here. Tighten this down. Okay. I went on this tighter setting, so there we go. Nice and tight. Now they include, oh, they did include a spare. Oh well. A little bit of heat shrink already in this little baggie, this parts kit. So we're going to take this down here. Heat shrink is nice because it does two different things. So one, it obviously protects us against corrosion and stuff where the wire's actually connecting to that terminal, and two, it actually supports the wire. So where that wire meets the terminal, it can move around and get, you know, wear out those wires and cause a break. So this actually supports the wire. You can use a regular lighter. I just like MAP gas because it's quicker. Okay. So that's the one. And so I'm sure most people know how to do that. Super simple. Now in the front parts kit, there is these spade terminals, and do not get confused and use this kit, because these ones are smaller and they will not fit on the headlights. These ones are bigger and they will fit on the headlights. I learned that lesson wiring up my dad's car. Had to redo them all. So there's two sets of kind of like tabs there you can see, and what you want is that 1/4 of an inch. So you want this in here to where the front tabs, these shorter ones, are going to pinch the wires, the bare wire, and these back ones pinch the actually insulated part. And this is where you're going to use your rollover crimpers. Like I said, I picked these up from Painless. They're like 20 bucks or something. But you do need these to do a proper rollover crimp connection. And that's how the factory did it. It's a better connection than anything else. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with A, because these ones have letters on them. I don't really know what, but A, B, C, D, E. A is the biggest. So we're going to go with A first to at least kind of get it. These crimpers are not just smashing it. What they're actually doing is they kind of have an M shape to it. So those tabs come up and then they roll over and pinch the wires. And that's really critical. You don't want them like this, like the tabs to just flop over each other. You want them to go into each other and pinch the wires. So got this, we got this. So we're going to do it to where, like I said, the insulated part stays with that second set of tabs. So A is too big. Let's try B. Still too big. So maybe C's our guy. Oh yeah, C's the right one. And these crimpers too have a little flat spot at the ends where if you ever need to just give it like a little more just a tiny bit, you can pinch them. So there's kind of how that looks, and hopefully you guys can see this. Here, it'll adjust and zoom. But there's the first one, and then we're going to go with, I'm just going to go straight to B on this second one. Let's see how that looks. It might need, that's pretty good. Maybe I'll give it a little pinch of C. Yeah. So there we go, perfectly done. So the first one there is what actually connects the wire to your terminal, and then the second one is really just kind of supporting that connection, and then also it's where if you tug on these that it won't all fall apart or pull out. So there you go, there's how to properly connect a terminal, and I'll show you guys again here in a second. So there's my grounds. Like I said, I already had done one side, but my camera shut off, so there's my grounds. And here's the little guys that they pop into, and I don't remember which wire goes where, but luckily it is in the manual. So it says use a connector, the connector is shown from the wire insertion side. So that's going to be this side, like that. So the ground will go on the left here, which this is the left. I think it might be backwards for you guys. I don't know. So number 969 on the left will go that. So we can just slide this in here. Hold on, maybe it goes the other way. Yeah. That. Just might as well set these guys up right now. I feel like, yeah, I guess it does. All right, so this side also. And there is a kind of a right and a wrong way for these to go in here, because if they're wrong, then they'll pull out. So these guys have a little tab here on the back, and that hooks on these, so basically it won't pull out. Okay, so here's my grounds done. Let's go over to the car here. I'll get set up and show you again from a different perspective, doing these rollover crimpers on the headlight wires. So kind of prep these. Tomorrow's supposed to rain, so it's going to be a bit of a rain delay, but I'm hoping today, well, it won't happen today. Hoping to get a majority of this up here done today, but it's almost Christmas here. It's the penultimate day, and there's people coming into town, so it might be after Christmas before I finish this. All right, let me get set up and show you again. Okay, now you can kind of see things from my point of view. So here's the two, I don't know, whatever, high beam, low beam. So tan is low beam, green is high wires. So we're going to strip them to 1/4 inch. Doop. Sound effects are necessary. Doop. Twist these guys a little bit. And then get a rollover crimper and try not to drop it like I just did. So this went to C, but I'm gonna start it with B anyways, just to kind of get the initial rollover done. Let's see if I can show you guys. You can see that in there. So it kind of starts the rollover, and then that's not tight, so that would pull right out. Kind of go in there. Oop. And then same thing on this guy. We'll start on B. And I mean, B's pretty good on it, but I'll make it a little tighter. Let's see. Like that. Okay, so there's one. Let's do it again. So gotta have a set of these guys. I'll show you with my ratcheting ones, but it's the same basic process, just fancier. But these work absolutely fine. So we'll get, come on now. Get this in here. Start with B again. And then we'll finish with C here. You can see how the wires just kind of go and squirt. Well, not really squirt, but. And then again, the tips here, if you need to just like, oh, I need to maybe give it a little extra pinch, you can. So then we'll do, you can see this one I probably stripped a little bit too much, but that's all right. We'll do B, get it started, and then we'll do C to finish her off here. And that's that, folks. So here's our two wires. Let me go grab my little connector. Okay, and this guy goes on the top, the tan one, and this guy goes on this side, just like that. So you can see there, connectors. So I did get a little ahead of myself. I didn't put the grommet on here, but that's okay. I'll pull these back apart. That little tab, you just click it and slide right out. So there you go. That's how we do the wire terminal. So I won't show you every single time I have to do that, but I'm going to explain where I'm connecting every single wire. So I'm going to get that side done now. Passenger side, you can see extra long wires, which is nice. So if you did run it down and whatever, it'd be plenty long. This guy here I was playing with a little bit a minute ago, so it's super nice. Like I said, it already comes with these already terminated and everything. This is for 57, but 55 and 6 do come with the new connectors and these boots. You just have to do it yourself, but not a big deal because I'll show you that on the taillights. But this one has the weather pack connector, so I will show you that next because I have to do these wires next. So I will show you the weather pack, but I'm going to get that one going and put my headlights back in, and we'll go from there. Okay, so headlights are in and working on this guy now. So this, like I said, these ones are on for the 57, comes with its own little sub harness. If you have a 55 or 56, you'll have to wire these into your turn signals down there. Here's a pro tip, and I don't remember if the painless says to do this or not, but this is what I did on this car, is I ran its own ground from this housing. I think I tied it in with the headlight ground and off to the frame, because these things, you know, the turn signals are always finicky with grounds, and on those cars, they really suck as far as getting ground. So I ran my own ground specifically from that housing over to the frame. Just, I would recommend doing that. Okay, so here is, it's interesting. I don't remember putting this little rubber piece back here. Oh, anyways, here is this. So these guys are already pre-terminated, but they do come with all this pieces if you have a 55, 56. Actually, I believe they're these guys here. So it's just a matter of doing some butt splices, but it already comes with them. You just boop, pop them in. But these guys just pop in here, and there is a correct way and a wrong way. If it doesn't go in, then you know, like, oh, that one doesn't work, so it must be the other way. Nope, I must have had that correct. It's like a USB port. You got to try both ways. Okay, and then I did put a little dielectric grease on the end of there. I put a little bit on the edge right here, so I can slide this in. I'm gonna try and do this one-handed here. A little protective boot. There it is. It kind of popped right over. Now, it says in the instructions just to kind of like lay this in here. I don't know exactly which way, and it'll you know, clear everything. I don't even know which way. But before I do that, I'm going to put some of this classic braid on. So, as I mentioned before, this stuff, you just open it up, you lay your wires in there, and it folds back up. So kind of like this. So really hard to do one-handed, but it's really easy with two hands. So if you're a one-handed mechanic, you might struggle here. But let me get this stuff on here, and I'll show you that. All right, so we got classic braid on there, and I just take a little zip tie it to the end. So I kind of did that here and here, just to, like I said, help hide these wires and protect it. Now, Painless has you take this off. It says to run the wires here, but I'm afraid they're going to fall out the bottom. I don't know. In theory, if you really wanted to, I guess you could have go in from here on the back side and just run the wires on the back side of your grill. But they have it on the front side, so I'm going to play with this here and see what I can come up with. Because I don't... Hold on one second here. Let's see here. See if we can figure this one out. Hopefully you guys can see somewhat. So this to go. So if that's in there like that, let me show you guys. The problem is the wires are hanging down. Huh. That's kind of weird. Oh, it's just, they're just, I don't want them flopping there, so I think what I might do, just to make this easier for me, because you can access, yeah, you can access all that, is I might, well, I guess I'd have to take this off. I don't really want to do that. I say I might just pull this all out and have it run along the backside, and I'll just zip tie it to the grill right here, and you wouldn't see it. But then I couldn't really get through there because it's already all pre-terminated, unless I went up here, which would look bad. So I think what I'm going to do is mount this, and then I will zip tie this to the back side of the grill all the way down. Kind of like that. Yeah, I think that'll work. And then this guy will hook up this. Yeah, I think that's the game plan. But for right now, I gotta go inside and clean house a little bit. So I'll pick back up in a little bit. All right, let's figure out this turn signal stuff here. Okay, so we have these guys, which are another style of rollover crimp, but they're weather pack ones. So the two purple wires go together. Remember, this is for 57 only, but the two purple wires, let me take that back. There is weather pack connectors if you wanted to do that on your 55 or 56. So this would apply there too, but you don't have to. So weather pack connector there. So on the instructions say the purple ones, because they're doubled up, it gets a little bit bigger guy. So that's why it's green. And then on these guys, they're purple. So you'll notice too on these, there's kind of like a little shoulder past these like 3 rings. That is actually where like the second set of tabs gets attached or squeezed together. So the first set is where the wire is, and the second one is where the second tabs are. So let's get these guys going. I'm gonna probably do the same thing. I'm gonna go kind of step this a little bit. So I'm going to try it on this guy first. So let's see here. Go in there like that. So it's still very loose. So we'll go down to number C, which is the front one. Pinch it just a little bit more. And then there's my wires. And then we'll do, let's try B. Oh, these are a little far apart. B. And then just the biggest one, A, works plenty fine for the back tabs to kind of pinch that in there. So I don't know if you can see it, but that's kind of how it needs to look. Roll over and for the metal wire, and then roll over for these guys. So I'm going to do these other wires, and then what we do, this is pretty simple. So you just click them in here, they'll lock into place. Then you flip this down, which kind of holds these guys, and then we'll just connect them. So it does show in the manual how to wire these up or what order, but you could always just copy this one, right? So like dark blue, 2 purple, light blue. So let me get the rest of these and we'll click it together. All right, these are all crimped now. So don't mind the fighter jet flying over. Oh, and these are the female ends, because they're the males are in here, by the way. Just gotta make sure you get the right ones. So I'm just gonna match these up. So the purple goes in the middle, kind of like that. Look at that. And then we have light blue over here. And dark blue up here. Right. So then all those are in there. We'll clip that together, and then I'm going to flip this over like that. There we go. Turn signals done. Here's the horn wire and the hot and run and start accessory wire here. So I just rolled those up there. So I have one horn here, and I might have another one in the trunk. I gotta look. I don't even know if these work, so I'm probably just gonna buy a set of, you know, aftermarket ones and put there. So what'll end up happening, these ones are pretty simple though, but the black wire will come up and it'll go to this guy, and then I'll probably run it up under here and over and then to that guy. So you just got to cut the wire and do it for both. So that's pretty simple. So that's that. Next up is going to be all these engine wires, and I haven't put the classic braid on this yet. I'm kind of wanting to get everything wired up so I know the correct lengths, and I might be adding a couple wires. Like I was looking in the instructions, I have a deluxe heater, so the wire for the blower motor actually needs to come through here, so I got to pull it out of the harness inside and feed it through here. So if I would put that classic braid on there, then I'd be screwed. Not screwed, but I'd have to redo it. So little things like that I'm just gonna wait on. So yeah, next up we're gonna work on this. So this one's, I mean, there's not a whole lot of wires, right? So this one's electric choke. I don't have an electric choke. This one, the print wore off on it over there. It says regulator power, battery power. So this one might actually need to run in here. I'll have to research that one. Pink is obviously like some sort of ignition coil. Well, here's a brown one, is regulator power. So this might be for our dummy light, be my guess. So again, that might need to come out over here. And then we have what I'm assuming is water temperature, oil pressure, and tachometer wires. So some of these might need to get rerouted. So I'm gonna research this a little bit before I get to going on it, but either way, not a big deal. All right, well, let me read in the book a little bit more on this, and we'll get back to you. Okay, here's where we're at with this. So I'm kind of playing with this a little bit, and here's where we're going with. So here's a new ballast resistor, new coil sitting here. I still have a new cap and rotor and all that I got to put on, but I was trying to figure all this out. And this is obviously for points, coil, you know, ballast resistor style ignition. I'd assume very few and far of you, I guess if you're watching this video, you're probably not wiring it this way. You probably have like an HEI distributor. So, but just for the fun of it. So here's how this works. So there's the ignition coil wire, number 920. That's got to go like on this side of the ballast resistor, then come off of that side and go to the plus side of the coil. You can't go straight from here to here if this isn't a regulated, what are the term they use with no ballast resistor. But I have a ballast resistor, so because it says if your car needs a ballast resistor and you wire this up directly, it'll basically smoke your coil within like a minute or something. So got to do that. Then the other thing it shows, this is a little bit better diagram probably than me pointing at stuff. So here's the pink wire. It's got to go through the ballast resistor over here to the plus side. Now this little OR thing kind of confused me, so I actually reached out to Painless and I was asking them. So this yellow wire, I mean, it doesn't have to be yellow, but a wire that's not supplied in the kit needs to go from the R, the I stud of the starter to the plus side of the coil. And the reason for that is it gives it a direct 12 volts when it's in the key, or it's in the start position, and that they said that'll help it start easier. So originally the ignition switch has 2 wires coming off for ignition power, and that's wise, because one of those would go to this here, but Painless doesn't wire it up that way. So again, what I'm doing right now is heavily dependent on what ignition system you have. I'd imagine most have something like this if you're still carbureted, or you know, an MSD box. That's even easier. Whatever you got, or I mean, if you're LS swapped or something like that, then pretty much this is, you could use this coil ignition power just to power up your computer, because it's basically, this is hot and on and in start. So it's, if the key's on at all, this is getting power. So, and then I got to run the tachometer. So I don't have a tachometer. I don't exactly plan on putting one in here, but because you just never know, I'm going to wire up this wire. So it's a green with a white stripe that's in this harness. I think it's this guy here. Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and wire this up, and it goes to the negative side of the coil. So that way, if I do decide to one day, you know, wire in a tachometer, it's already there, it's already wired. All I have to do is pull the wire, which I'm going to coil up under the dash, and connect it to my tach. Super easy. So I'm going to do that. A couple other things. One is this brown wire here. This is in the under the dash. This is an accessory section, and it's actually the blower motor power. Because I have a deluxe heater, my motor's way over here. So I pulled it out of that, and I have it laying over here through this hole. So I can wire that up, which will be this wire here, I guess. That's the original one. So that's the other thing. And then this wire is a brown with a white stripe, and it is regulator power, number 914. So there's this wire, and actually another one that if you had an alternator, this is what you would use on it. And the red one I already pulled inside, but this guy, I think what I'm gonna do is, it needs to, I forget, it goes over here to one of these on the regulator. I probably need to buy a new regulator, but it goes over here, and that's what allows it to turn on that bulb on the generator bulb on the dash. So I think what my thinking was pull this out, have it come out with this wiring harness here, just to make it a little bit cleaner, because even if it has to go up here, I still have to have wires that come from here and go into this harness to go over here. So it'd just be a little bit cleaner than having like one single wire come over like this, you know? So just moving it around just to make it a little bit cleaner installation. So I did already wire up my water temperature. Here's my oil pressure, which I haven't put the end on it yet, but that goes back there. Pretty easy. What other wires do we have here? Oh, electric choke. So I do not have a choke, and it's definitely not electric even if I did. So this, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull this back underneath the dash and coil it up, and who knows, maybe someday I'll put a different carburetor on here, or I can repurpose this for something else. So I'm just going to leave this under the dash out of the way. So that's kind of it. There's extremely minimal wiring here. I do have the wire, the big fat purple one that I need to come through here over to the starter to actually engage the starter. That one I have to trim underneath the dash though, because it has to go through the neutral safety switch. So I haven't pulled that one out yet. So I'm running on a daylight right now. What a nice sunset, huh? I'm running on a daylight, so I'm going to work on this stuff, move these wires around, get this wire, purple wire over here, and the wire that I need to go from the starter up to the coil that's not supplied. I mean, it's pretty simple. Like, I'm just going to use one of these. Like, these are just scrap pieces from me wiring in things, and I have even more of these in another box over here. Here's my little painless section, I guess, from previous installs. I think this one here, or one of these, I can't remember now, has tons of scrap wire. So I'm just going to grab a piece of wire from there and repurpose it. And that'll kind of be it for under the hood. But I'm going to get a couple of these things moved around, and I'll show you the wiring up this generator to that guy also. But again, I gotta imagine if you're watching this video, you're probably not running a generator. You're probably running an alternator, or at least a internally regulated alternator. So, but I'll still show you how I do it on this car. But again, if you need to know, there's all the different versions here and diagrams showing you how to wire them all up. So here's a GM externally regulated alternator. So this would be like more if you had like a Chevelle or something. I think kind of was that way. But here's my generator charging system. So I got to wire that up too with the MIDI fuse and all that. You can see here I was actually looking at the factory diagram as well, just kind of like seeing how some of this ran to make sure that because this is really what I was looking at. So here's my voltage regulator, and one of these has, so there's this 12 gauge black, so that goes, so I'll need that's the positive, that's my charge wire to the battery. But one of these somewhere, oh, it's over here on the generator itself. I believe it's the armature one has 2 wires that come off of it. Yeah, so it goes down 20 gauge brown, blam, ba-bam, and it ends up coming over here to my generator tail lamp, I guess. So it's 20 gauge brown. You can see it right there, 20 gauge brown. So, and this is already wired up on the painless stuff, so I don't need to worry on that end. I just got to add that to the armature, what we were talking about earlier, this guy here, and you can see even from the factory it had 2 wires on it. So it just goes to this guy here. This generator doesn't even work, so I got to buy a new generator. Just trying to get all this going first. But all right, enough rambling on. I'm going to clean up a couple things and we'll go from there. Okay, here's where we're at with this. So I'm kind of playing with this a little bit, and here's where we're going with. So here's a new ballast resistor, new coil sitting here. I still have a new cap and rotor and all that I got to put on, but I was trying to figure all this out. And this is obviously for points, coil, ballast resistor style ignition. I'd assume very few and far of you, I guess if you're watching this video, you're probably not wiring it this way. You probably have like an HEI distributor. So, but just for the fun of it. So here's how this works. So there's the ignition coil wire, number 920. That's got to go like on this side of the ballast resistor, then come off of that side and go to the plus side of the coil. You can't go straight from here to here if this isn't a regulated, what are the term they use with no ballast resistor. But I have a ballast resistor, so because it says if your car needs a ballast resistor and you wire this up directly, it'll basically smoke your coil within like a minute or something. So got to do that. Then the other thing it shows, this is a little bit better diagram probably than me pointing at stuff. So here's the pink wire. It's got to go through the ballast resistor over here to the plus side. Now this little OR thing kind of confused me, so I actually reached out to Painless and I was asking them. So this yellow wire, I mean, it doesn't have to be yellow, but a wire that's not supplied in the kit needs to go from the I stud of the starter to the plus side of the coil. And the reason for that is it gives it a direct 12 volts when it's in the key, or it's in the start position, and that they said that'll help it start easier. So originally the ignition switch has 2 wires coming off for ignition power, and that's wise, because one of those would go to this here, but Painless doesn't wire it up that way. So again, what I'm doing right now is heavily dependent on what ignition system you have. I'd imagine most have something like this if you're still carbureted, or you know, an MSD box. That's even easier. Whatever you got, or I mean, if you're LS swapped or something like that, then pretty much this is, you could use this coil ignition power just to power up your computer, because it's basically, this is hot and on and in start. So it's, if the key's on at all, this is getting power. So, and then I got to run the tachometer. So I don't have a tachometer. I don't exactly plan on putting one in here, but because you just never know, I'm going to wire up this wire. So it's a green with a white stripe that's in this harness. I think it's this guy here. Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and wire this up, and it goes to the negative side of the coil. So that way, if I do decide to one day, you know, wire in a tachometer, it's already there, it's already wired. All I have to do is pull the wire, which I'm going to coil up under the dash, and connect it to my tach. Super easy. So I'm going to do that. A couple other things. One is this brown wire here. This is in the under the dash. This is an accessory section, and it's actually the blower motor power. Because I have a deluxe heater, my motor's way over here. So I pulled it out of that, and I have it laying over here through this hole. So I can wire that up, which will be this wire here, I guess. That's the original one. So that's the other thing. And then this wire is a brown with a white stripe, and it is regulator power, number 914. So there's this wire, and actually another one that if you had an alternator, this is what you would use on it. And the red one I already pulled inside. But this guy, I think what I'm gonna do is, it needs to, I forget, it goes over here to one of these on the regulator. I probably need to buy a new regulator, but it goes over here, and that's what allows it to turn on that bulb on the generator bulb on the dash. So I think what my thinking was pull this out, have it come out with this wiring harness here, just to make it a little bit cleaner, because even if it has to go up here, I still have to have wires that come from here and go into this harness to go over here. So it'd just be a little bit cleaner than having like one single wire come over like this, you know? So just moving it around just to make it a little bit cleaner installation. So I did already wire up my water temperature. Here's my oil pressure, which I haven't put the end on it yet, but that goes back there. Pretty easy. What other wires do we have here? Oh, electric choke. So I do not have a choke, and it's definitely not electric even if I did. So this, what I'm gonna do is, I'm just gonna pull this back underneath the dash and coil it up, and who knows, maybe someday I'll put a different carburetor on here, or I can repurpose this for something else. So I'm just gonna leave this under the dash out of the way. So that's kind of it. There's extremely minimal wiring here. I do have the wire, the big fat purple one that I need to come through here over to the starter to actually engage the starter. That one I have to trim underneath the dash though, because it has to go through the neutral safety switch. So I haven't pulled that one out yet. So I'm running out of daylight right now. What a nice sunset, huh? I'm running out of daylight, so I'm gonna work on this stuff, move these wires around, get this wire, purple wire over here, and the wire that I need to go from the starter up to the coil that's not supplied. I mean, it's pretty simple. Like, I'm just gonna use one of these. Like, these are just scrap pieces from me wiring in things, and I have even more of these in another box over here. Here's my little painless section, I guess, from previous installs. I think this one here, or one of these, I can't remember now, has tons of scrap wire. So I'm just going to grab a piece of wire from there and repurpose it. And that'll kind of be it for under the hood. But I'm going to get a couple of these things moved around, and I'll show you the wiring up this generator to that guy also. But again, I gotta imagine if you're watching this video, you're probably not running a generator. You're probably running an alternator, or at least a internally regulated alternator. So, but I'll still show you how I do it on this car. But again, if you need to know, there's all the different versions here and diagrams showing you how to wire them all up. So here's a GM externally regulated alternator. So this would be like more if you had like a Chevelle or something, I think kind of was that way. But here's my generator charging system. So I got to wire that up too with the MIDI fuse and all that. You can see here I was actually looking at the factory diagram as well, just kind of like seeing how some of this ran to make sure that because this is really what I was looking at. So here's my voltage regulator, and one of these has, so there's this 12 gauge black, so that goes, so I'll need that's the positive, that's my charge wire to the battery. But one of these somewhere, oh, it's over here on the generator itself. I believe it's the armature one, has two wires that come off of it. Yeah, so it goes down 20 gauge brown, ba-bam, and it ends up coming over here to my generator tail lamp, I guess. So it's 20 gauge brown, you can see it right there, 20 gauge brown. So, and this is already wired up on the painless stuff, so I don't need to worry on that end. I just got to add that to the armature, what we were talking about earlier, this guy here, and you can see even from the factory it had two wires on it, so it just goes to this guy here. This generator doesn't even work, so I got to buy a new generator. Just trying to get all this going first. But all right, enough rambling on. I'm going to clean up a couple things and we'll go from there. All right, in the interest of making this video short, because I know it's really long right now, I went ahead and kind of finished the under hood wiring. I didn't really exactly film it, but let me show you what I did, so you can kind of see. So yesterday I was wiring this stuff all up. So there's the pink wire that comes through the firewall, goes into the ballast resistor, comes out of the ballast resistor, goes to the plus side of the coil. Now I found a yellow wire in my spare box of wiring over there from previous installs and ran that down, and it's kind of just hanging down there by the starter, but it needs to get hooked up as well. I just haven't done it yet. I terminated the oil pressure. I still need to terminate, I'm sorry, this is the oil pressure. I still need to terminate it, but I got to get a different connector for it. There's the water temps all terminated. What else? Oh, coil, or the tachometer wire goes over here to the ground, the little wire that goes down to the distributor. So all these wires will get cleaned up really nicely, and I'll show you that in a later video. Oh, and then I have the heater blower wire going over there, but before I connect it, I'm going to test to make sure that blower motor is even good before I connect that. But that will handle that. On this side, and more importantly here, is the generator wiring. You can see all this good stuff up here. So here's what we did. So this is the alternator wire that goes to the gauge up in the dash. What number is this? I'm looking here for you guys. 914. So it goes to the, I believe it's the armature A terminal, and then here's the charge wire that goes down and it actually comes around and it goes up to here, the middle post on this voltage regulator. This purple wire is probably too thick. It doesn't need to be that thick, but oh well. It's supposed to be dark blue from the factory, but I thought, well, purple's close enough. So it comes off here, the field there, and it goes down to this bottom lug on the voltage regulator. And then I also have the ground, and these are just sitting here because, like I said, I got to replace this. So these are just kind of sitting here for mock-up purposes. But here's a ground wire that comes around, and it actually goes to here on the voltage regulator. So it just kind of grounds to the body more than anything. Then Painless has this MIDI fuse here, and I probably have to buy a different fuse for it because it comes with like a 150 amp fuse, which is probably way too much for this car, but that's all right. So there's like the charge lug off of the voltage regulator. So we go from here up to there to the one side, and then on the same side of the MIDI fuse, this is the wire that actually powers the entire car. So this actually runs all the way in here. This is this guy here, goes all the way up to the fuse block. So this is the 916 battery source MIDI fuse wire. So this is what actually powers everything in the car. So that's that. Pretty simple. And then on the other side, this wire you see here kind of floating around, it goes to the positive of your battery or your starter, but I just put it to the battery because my battery's right there. Easy enough. And that's about it. So I'm going to shut up right now because I know this video is way too long already, but I was trying to get fuse block mounted and everything, you know, firewall forward wired up for you. The only other things are these guys here. So this was the horn, but I don't even know if that horn works, and I got to find another one. So I'll probably just buy some aftermarket ones, but that's super simple. You just hook it up to the little power terminal on there and then run a wire over. So that, and then this gray one was the, it's just hot and run to trigger a relay for a cooling fan. So I'm just going to stow that away somewhere, but everything else is all ran. But that's everything from the firewall forward. I will clean up all the wiring and kind of show you how I do that with the classic braid and electrical tape and mastic tape and all that good stuff in a later episode. But thanks for watching. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe, and watch out for part 3 where I will be tackling everything under the hood, or I'm sorry, under the dash, all this good stuff here. We're going to get all that all wired up in the next episode, and then the final episode will be the rear and probably all the classic braid stuff. So thanks for watching. See you soon.